Hello my ghouls and goblins. It's me, the casual crypt keeper Taylor, and welcome back to Top 5 Scary. NASA, what are they doing up there? What do they know that I don't? Well, probably a whole lot, about rockets and stars and stuff. Well, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know they've definitely got some secrets, probably some alien skeletons in their closet. Let's take a look at the top 5 NASA conspiracy theories that might be true. Let's dive on in. Number 5, Roswell. So, if we're gonna be discussing NASA conspiracy theories, only makes sense to start out one of the time-tested conspiracy theories before we get into the truly wild ones. So let's start with one of the most infamous conspiracies, that an alien craft landed in Roswell, New Mexico. It was 1947 when a rancher discovered bizarre debris on his property, thin, foil, and metal, not looking like anything he'd ever seen before, describing it as looking like it was part of a giant kite. After stories 2 weeks earlier of a civilian pilot, one Kenneth Arnold, broke headlines by telling the world he'd seen a flying saucer, the rancher told media that he suspected the debris he had found had belonged to a similar downed alien craft. Now the Air Force got wind of this and were interested in the story, naturally, and came to recover the debris off the property, leading to an infamous headline: RAAF captures flying saucer on ranch in Roswell region, and from there, conspiracy theories would run rampant over as to what was happening in Roswell, around it, and in the skies. No one really knew for sure what was happening. All anyone knew is that the government was being very cloak and dagger, hush hush about whatever it was that had crashed onto that farmer's property. Was it from a spacefaring race? Had the government really captured a downed alien craft? Were they using it to reverse engineer new technology? These were the wild questions everybody was asking amidst the story of the UFO crash landing. On top of that were whispers and stories of footage of an alien autopsy conducted at a secret research base. Claims that there were leaked blueprints for US developed UFO technology. Those were some of the more colorful theories. Now the official story is that the debris recovered was from a weather balloon being used to record sound waves caused by Soviet nuclear testing. But for years, the story was out and UFO and flying saucer fever was at an all-time high. This one event probably did more single-handedly to fuel conspiracy theory and government distrust on the subject of aliens more than anything else in history. And to this day, is probably still one of the most famous cases of UFO sightings. Now whether or not you believe the official story is one thing, but we may never know the full story. And my friends, if you're looking for more stories of aliens, monsters, all things creepy, crawly, sticky, slimy, and things that go bump in the night, well baby, there's no better spot than Top 5 Scary. But you already knew that. Click through the archives, find something worth watching, and toss a subscribe our way and spend the whole day here. Number 4, NASA's a fraud. Okay, let's get into it. Among conspiracy theorists, there's a not totally unpopular theory that all NASA does, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, is a totally bogus shell company that exists solely to burn up taxpayer money, working tirelessly to create a smokescreen propaganda show for the American public. And all of these rocket launches have all just been expensive charades, and all the imagery retrieved from the stars are just complicated CGI renderings, and all the astronauts are very well trained actors. And if you're detecting more than a bit of cynical sarcasm in my voice, it's because, well, this one's a little out there even for me. I'm an avid enjoyer of a good conspiracy theory, but yeah, this one doesn't hold too much water. It's mostly popular on Twitter, and if you check out the hashtag NASA hoax after this video, you can scroll through some good stuff. The main arguments for this theory are similar to claims that the moon landing was faked, and put a pin in that because we will get into that later in the video in more detail. Believers of this theory claim that NASA uses wild special effects for photos from space, or their photos from inside rockets, and all their launches are fake. And I'll be honest, this one just seems like a lot of work for I'm not sure what kind of payoff. It actually seems like it would just be easier to build rockets and fly them into space than do all this stuff. I don't personally believe the moon landing was fake, but I can understand where that theory is coming from. Theoretically, why the organization would do it. It's important to the space race. But the whole agency being a fraud, well, I don't know. For one thing, they've really committed to this bit for the last 50 years, if that's true. Another is that NASA does a lot more than just launching rockets, and the innovations they've made for their astronauts benefit humanity as a whole. For example, the satellites they put into Earth's orbit, without that you wouldn't have your phone, you wouldn't have GPS software, even just little things like the advancements in computer software, everyday stuff like memory foam, freeze-dried food, water purification technology. They did make all of these things, which aren't fake. So I'm not gonna outright say I think this conspiracy might be a little out of this world, but I'm also gonna say if there really is no NASA, it is amazing they've managed to keep this under such tight wraps for so long. Number 3, the 9th planet. Now this one's a fun conspiracy because it's totally out there. All the way up in the solar system. This conspiracy is of the doomsday variety, saying that there's a hypothetical hypothetical ninth planet out there that's just waiting at the edge of the solar system, waiting to cause trouble as it poses a grave threat to humanity and the Earth as a whole. This celestial body of destruction is allegedly supposed to hurl all sorts of nasty asteroids and comets our way, like a sentient, malevolent force of evil, and it's gonna pummel our planet with all these space rocks, and I think in the next Avengers movie they're gonna take it down. Now, this alleged ninth planet is the focus of a larger, pretty well documented conspiracy theory unofficially called the Nibiru Cataclysm. And let me do my best to parse this one for you. A Wisconsinite named Nancy Leader claims that as a young girl, she was contacted by an alien race called the Zaytons, who, not to discredit her, I'm pretty sure was the alien race from the Fallout 3 DLC that took place in space, but whatever. Leader claims that the Zaytons contacted her when she was young and implanted her with an intergalactic communication system, and throughout the 90s, Leader would preach the good word about the Zaytons, but also to warn people about an incoming danger from Planet X, this unknown ninth planet beyond Neptune that was going to make its way to Earth and end all civilization. Now, although it was initially named Planet X, it eventually caught the name Nibiru, referencing these ancient Mesopotamian religious texts referring to a mythical giant planet called Nibiru or Marduk that passes by Earth every 3,600 years, bringing its sentient beings closer to humanity, with some people believing these beings are celestial gods. Whew, that's a whole lot of words. So what about this wild theory is true? Well, NASA has been researching the possibility of a ninth planet for years and years, as there is some reasonable speculation that there could be something inside our solar system just outside of Neptune we haven't seen. However, no danger of this mystery planet hurling any comets at us, and whether or not it's carrying a race of hyper-intelligent Satans who are going to destroy us all remains to be seen. It's worth noting that as part of Leader's conspiracy, she's alleged the Earth would have been destroyed 3 times now, but it keeps getting delayed. So, hey, better late than never, right? Number 2. Secret life on Mars. In 1971, British philosopher David Bowie posed a question, asking, is there life on Mars? He also made some pretty bold claims about spiders on Mars and their guitar playing prowess. Since then, it's a question that's raged in the back of our minds. Is there something waiting for us out on the red planet? One of the first bits of kindling for this fire of conspiracy was in 1976. A photo released from the Viking 1 and Viking 2 orbiters across Mars showed what looked like an almost perfectly sculpted depiction of a human being's face on the surface of Mars. I mean, look at it, it's downright uncanny. A nose, a mouth, eyes, it looks exactly like a person. This led to some wild theorizing that there was something intelligent, alive on Mars that had made contact with humanity, or perhaps even looked like humans, and had sculpted this effigy in clear view of our cameras in hopes to make contact, or perhaps some ancient civilization built it, like that guy on the History Channel was always doing this. Aliens. I don't know his name. Unfortunately for all, later photos of the rock formation would show that, well, it was just a big rock, and the face on Mars was not much more than a mix of an optical illusion and the human brain's desire to see patterns that aren't there. Sorry. This wouldn't be the only time something like this happened, though. In 2008, a similar phenomenon would be recorded, and everybody's heart would race when the Opportunity rover brought back a photo of what looked like a human woman on Mars, or quite honestly Bigfoot, because what I see here is Bigfoot. Unfortunately, similar to the face on Mars, this is just a rock formation taken at just the right angle with the light hitting it just the right way to trick our eyes. Another phenomenon known as the spiders from Mars, unrelated to David Bowie, is present on Mars, where giant black patterns appear on the surface looking like humongous spiders or webs, leading some to believe this could be the proof of Martians. But these were eventually discovered to just be remnants of gas that had cracked through ice on Mars's surface. So until the CEO of Twitter can get that rocket working and get somebody up there, seems like we've still got a way to go before we find that life on Mars. Sorry, Bowie. Number 1, the moon landing. Right? Well, I'm sorry to make you wait so long for it, but I gotta keep you to the end of the video somehow. I wanted to save the best for last and cap it off with the most famous NASA conspiracy, and maybe one of the most famous conspiracy theories of all time. The moon landing didn't happen. Total fake, right? That's it. That's the video. Never happened. Oh, okay. You want me to talk about it? I can do that. Yeah, no worries. Let's dissect it a little bit then. So, the biggest arguments for the moon landing being totally fake is that there's no stars in the sky in the photos, the US flag is flowing as if it's blowing valiantly in the wind, and there are footprints but no marks from the lunar modules. Now, all of this is presented as being totally irrefutable, but in actuality, there's answers for all of these technologies. The glow of the moon washes out the stars. The flag had metal rods sewn into it so it looks like it was blowing, because otherwise it would just hang straight down and not look that cool. And the lunar module's mass was distributed much wider than any of the astronauts' boots, and therefore didn't leave any impressions. But of course, what if the person who filmed the moon landings was such a master of the art? He could fake it better than anyone else could because of his filmmaking prowess, because he made a space movie a few years earlier. Now this is maybe my favorite conspiracy theory ever, is that legendary filmmaker Stanley Kubrick was commissioned by the US government to film the moon landing because of his expertise on 2001: A Space Odyssey. This theory is outrageous and ultimately harmless. It's very fun. Stanley Kubrick was a notorious perfectionist and had already shown that he was capable of filming a perfectly believable setting in space, so naturally he'd be the government's perfect choice. There are some who believe The Shining is secretly a confessional allegory for Kubrick's involvement in the faking of the moon landing, with some theorists believing things like Danny Torrance wearing a Apollo rocket sweater that's got a little 11 on the bottom, or the Grady twins referencing the Gemini space program, or even the infamous all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy thing on the typewriter is supposed to be a nod with the ALL spelling out A11. It's very crazy, like red tape stuff. If you're really interested, this theory is documented on the internet, and regardless of the truth, wildly entertaining. Personally, I think Kubrick did film the moon landing, but because he was such a notorious perfectionist, he insisted they film on location and made NASA develop a space program to fly to the moon to carry out his vision. Well, thanks so much for listening, ghouls and goblins. That's all for this video. Keep on creeping on, and I'll see you in the next one.